So what even is DSCR? Why is it so important? You've probably heard me talk about it. You've probably heard SBA talk about it and other people talk about it. Why is the SBA obsessed with it? Why does it feel like this metric that is constantly trying to kill my deal, although it's actually there to protect me and keep me safe? Let's talk about it. And as a thank you for liking, subscribing, and commenting on this video, here's a picture of a really cute axolotl working hard into the night, trying to get all those 990s filed before the deadline. Get the man some coffee, his cup is low. Hey, but honestly, if you really like the content, the education, learning how to buy a firm, and you want to get notified of more videos as they come out, throw a like, throw a comment, subscribe, do something. The next time I post a video, that way it'll pop up in front of your feed. Okay, so what does DSCR even stand for? DSCR stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. And this is the ratio that the SBA actually really focuses on when they're qualifying a deal and a borrower, versus most of us are probably used to the DTI ratio, the debt to income ratio. While most of us have bought a car or a house or something, that metric is based on your debt to income ratio. How much money do you make? How many loans and bills do you actually have right now? They're going to take a percentage of that. If you qualify, you're good. If you're over the threshold, you can't do the deal. That is different than the debt service coverage ratio. The debt service coverage ratio says how much profit is this firm making and how much is the expected loan payment to acquire the firm going to be. If the loan payment, and I'll just do it on a monthly basis, if the loan payment to the SBA is $10,000 a month, they're going to want to see a minimum threshold, the SBA is. But the debt service coverage ratio says if I'm making $15,000 a month in profit, and my loan payment is $10,000 a month, I have a 1.5 DSCR, 1.5 debt service coverage ratio. I need you to understand a 1.0 is no bueno. That is a break even. That's not going to get you anywhere. And to be honest, if you're calculating a DSCR of 1 and you're not using the bank, I still don't recommend you buy that deal. I mean, that literally means the cash flow that I'm making is just enough to cover the debt service for that loan and nothing else. I can't feed my family with it. I can't do anything because there is no extra money. And obviously anything below a 1.0 DSCR, you absolutely don't need to be looking at that deal because that is actually losing you money every single month. And I'll tell you what, you will be surprised at how many SIMs and financial statements that I take a look at for different firms across the country, be it off market or on market with a broker, where we're looking at the numbers and I'm like, you're losing money every single month based on the numbers that they're giving you. Your DSCR is below 1.0. So this is a great tool just so you can quickly assess what is the profitability of a particular firm. And it's important because we need to know it's a serious deal when you're buying a firm. Yes, there are plenty of benefits, more freedom, time control, instant revenue and cash flow, a client base that trusts you, all those different things. But at the end of the day, if it's not profitable, we shouldn't be doing it. This is something that we need to look at. It keeps you safe because it will let you know, hey, this firm isn't making any money after you pay the loan back. Red alert, red flag. That's why it's so important, and that's how it's going to keep you safe. Now let's talk about why it's so important to the SBA. I mean, I'm convinced because this is everything that they think about. This is all they focus on is DSCR. I'm convinced these guys jump out of bed in the morning and the first thing on their mind is debt service coverage ratios. I mean, it's everything to them, and I get it. And so it's important because it's going to show profitability. But man, when you're doing a deal, it starts to feel like the DSCR becomes the reason why you can't buy a firm. And I want you to know that the SBA, although there are a lot of hoops to jump through, there's paperwork, and it does take, a little over 2 months to get across the finish line, all those different things, it's actually there to keep you safe. The SBA implements it to make sure it keeps you safe. It's going to force you to buy a deal that is actually profitable. You cannot buy a deal that's less than a 1.5 DSCR from the SBA's point of view. Now, full disclosure, I say the floor for the DSCR when it comes to the SBA is 1.5. The SBA will tell you, the lenders will tell you, well, we could even go maybe to 1.4, maybe we could even go to 1.3 for the right deal, for the right borrower. This is some of the best advice that I can give you. Don't flirt with that line. We are literally talking about a firm that is just above making the debt service repayment, the loan payment. You don't want to be flirting with that line. So when you're doing these deals, understand that the SBA, yes, they're obsessed over it, but they're also there to make sure that you don't buy a deal today and tomorrow realize, oh, after I make the loan payment, I can't pay anything else. So that's why it's so important. That's why the SBA obsesses over it so much. And they're actually there to keep you safe. I know the SBA, we view them as the big bad bank, and we view them as these extremely picky and unreasonable people that aren't able to think outside of a checkbox and a process. So they're getting in the way of getting a good deal across the finish line. I think I got a little off track there. I digress. The point is, the SBA actually wants you to buy a profitable deal. That's why they obsess over that DSCR so much. Now let's talk about what deals should you be looking at and which deals should you not be looking at. If your deal is starting off at 1.5, here's the thing. Throughout the process, inevitably, on every deal that I've ever worked on my own or have been a part of with community members, every single deal has had the DSCR start off at a higher number, and by the time it was all said and done, that DSCR number was a whole lot lower. Not materially lower, but if I'm starting off at 2.0 DSCR, I might end up at 1.75 DSCR. So this is another reason that when you first start your deal, if you're at a 1.5 DSCR and you haven't even gone through due diligence yet, you're walking on thin ice at this point. I have another video that you can watch here that talks about working capital. And you know what happens to your DSCR when you roll in? Remember, working capital is rolled into your loan, like 10% of the deal. Well, guess what happens to your DSCR? It goes down because you're borrowing more money. Therefore, your debt service is going to be higher. You know what else you're going to run into? During your due diligence, inevitably, the firm owner says, oh, I'm going to keep a few clients. Oh, we found some non-routine transactions that we can't count on. All this plucking of revenue and shaving of revenue happens. And it's funny how expenses never get shaved during due diligence, but revenue does. But what that means is your bottom line, the cash flow that you're using for your DSCR, is going to get weaker and weaker and weaker. And that's why I'm telling you, you cannot start off a deal that you plan on using the SBA at a 1.5 DSCR. You're walking on dangerously thin ice. By the way, I want to send a really quick shout out to one of our newest community members, Karen. She not only joined within 7 days, she found a deal, talked to the owner, and got an LOI done. That is fast action taking. If you're interested in learning this whole process, if you're tired of being stuck in a rut, trying to figure out how to grow, I keep trying to tell you, this is it, growth through acquisitions. There's a link in the description below. Book a call with me. We could talk about your unique situation a little bit more. Here's a little bonus tip for you. One thing you need to add to your DSCR is what the SBA calls, well, if you're using the SBA, it's what the SBA calls required officer compensation. So the SBA realizes that it's not practical to say, I'm not going to pay myself. Now, maybe you have a big firm already and there's enough cash flow there that you can kind of make that case. But for the most part, most people are not going to be able to say, oh, I'm just not going to take a salary. And if that gets me past the thresholds, I'm good. They're going to say, look, reasonably, you're going to need to take a certain amount of salary. Now, I have seen deals get pushed through at $50,000 a year in salary. I have seen a lot more deals get pushed through at $75,000 a year in salary. And I've seen obviously $100,000 salary deals get pushed through. The lower the salary or the lower the required officer compensation, the more favorable it is, I should say, for your debt service coverage ratio. Because you got to think about it. You're taking the cash flow of the firm. You got to back out that required officer compensation. And now that's the new cash flow of the firm. Then you divide that by your debt service, right? And hopefully that comes out to above 1.5. So the way that looks is you're going to start off with the cash flow of the firm. You're going to now back out that required officer compensation. So let's say the cash flow of the firm is $300,000 a year. You're going to back out, let's say, $100,000 a year. Now you're at $200,000 in cash flow of the firm. Now you got to divide that by your debt service. I'm just making up numbers here. Don't crucify me. But let's say your annual debt service is $100,000 a year. Now you got a $200,000 divided by $100,000. Your DSCR is 2.0. Picture perfect. But that's really important for you to understand. Now, between me and you, what the SBA is using to calculate the DSCR in terms of required officer compensation, that is purely an arbitrary number that they're making up. So if they tell you, hey, listen, like I put $75,000 as the required officer compensation, or maybe you tell them you thinking you're going to pay yourself that, they're using that number and everything looks good. Just so you know, like the day you close, you can actually pay yourself what you believe is fair. Now, if you believe the number that the SBA had was fair, that's fine. Run with that number. But if you believe that you need to maybe put a little downward pressure on it just because you want to maybe buy new softwares or save a little bit of money or whatever, that's totally up to you. I just wanted to make that distinction because a lot of people think if the SBA says required officer compensation, they're not coming back after closing and auditing your books and making sure that the paycheck, goes into your personal account and, are you paying your payroll tax? No, they're not auditors. But upfront, purely for their DSCR calculation, it is a number that we cannot ignore. Now, I told you in the beginning that I'm going to tell you something that the SBA cannot and will not ever tell you about DSCR. And you know what that is? And this is frustrating. They will never tell you what they're calculating for DSCR. And I know that sounds crazy, but what I'm trying to tell you is if they're coming up with a 1.6 DSCR, and they're telling you, hey, you're just at the limit, but after I roll in your working capital, your DSCR is not strong enough anymore. Well, as numbers people, we would love to know the natural question, what numbers are you using to get to your DSCR, Mr. or Miss Lender? They're never going to tell you. Unfortunately, that is like they consider it kind of like a private, confidential calc. And really, the only thing that they're really going to tell you is you're too low, or the deal's too low, or you look good. It's almost like a pass-fail thing that they're really giving you versus here's the numbers that I'm using to go into your DSCR that is spitting out this ratio right now. It's frustrating. I don't really know why they do it. I think maybe it's because they don't want to start getting into back and forth. Well, you should include this, you shouldn't include that, all those different things. But as numbers people, we're starving for that. They're never going to give it to you. And there's a saying that says frustration is caused by unmet expectations. So I'm here to try and save you a little bit of frustration because when I first went through this whole thing, I was wanting to pull my hair out. I wanted to choke the lender over the phone, right? Like, give me the numbers. Just give me the dang number.
A few moments later.
I just want you to know that now. It'll save you some frustration if we just manage our expectations and know that they're just not going to give you that number, which is another reason why you should find a deal that's pretty healthy on DSCR before you even go down the rabbit hole. So I hope that helps you out. I hope you understand a little bit more on what DSCR is, why it's important, and honestly, why it's there to keep you safe. And if you want to learn more, comment 5 down below, and I'll send you 5 ways that you can buy a CPA firm for no money out of your own pocket. These are great strategies to have, great tools to have in your pocket as you're searching. And of course, if you want to talk a little bit more about what my advisory suite and all the amenities in it includes, how it can help you get out of the rut that you're in and grow through acquisitions, there's a link in the description. Book a call with me. And now I'm going to warn you now, I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm a no fluff kind of guy. I'm just going to kind of give it to you straight. And you like it or you don't like it, right? That's just the way it is. But at least you know that I'm giving you my honest, raw opinion. And remember, it's a cruel world, but we're better together. We'll see you later.